Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Enforcing the Fundamentals with Doug Harding. I'm Matt, and I'm sitting here with Doug because, it would kind of defeat the purpose if not that we haven't had another substitute come in before, and we may again. We'll see how that's going. Doug, how's it going?
It's going pretty good, Matt. I guess we both had a little bit of a week off, and we're all fired up, ready to go, and we're coming into the big series tomorrow.
Yeah, here we are. We're at the finals. It's a rematch from last year, Edmonton and Florida. Got that big north-south commute going in between games. I don't think you can get much further apart than these two teams.
Maybe Vancouver. That would be.
I don't know about that.
Because no, they've been sure on that.
Yeah,
because Edmonton's quite a bit further north. Vancouver's further west, but maybe further south. So yeah, be interesting. Somebody get out your yardstick and measure it up for us.
Meter stick. We use meter sticks up here.
Oh, am I ever old, eh? I still haven't forgotten. Hey, my U.S. friends will say yardsticks are okay.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
we get it.
It's right.
It's a whole thing. We don't need to really get into it. It's just, when everybody else is doing it, there's always got to be that one that's going to go against the grain. That's fine. But they got the big.
It's my signature, Matt, is going against the grain.
Yeah. Yeah, I can tell you to get from Vancouver to Miami is a little over a 5-hour plane ride, and then it's about 5.5 on the way back. Okay. So Edmonton, you're probably looking at least 5.5, maybe 6.
Oh, okay. I give up.
Yeah, I didn't Google it or anything. I'm just telling you what I know from traveling from Vancouver to Miami. The one time we were able to get a direct flight, and I'm assuming that these big teams are not going through TSA like the rest of us. They've probably got their jets chartered if they don't own one already. Although I feel like maybe the days of teams owning private planes are in the past at this point. But what do I know? I have not had the opportunity to be on a private or a charter jet. I sit with the cattle.
Yeah.
Especially when I fly WestJet.
But you meet lots of interesting cattle when you do that.
Yeah, you see some stuff. You do some things. You get penned in there pretty good. Yep. Hopefully you have your phone charged on some of these flights, and if not, a screen in the back of the seat. But those are not guarantees.
I don't know whether Edmonton has whether they charter or whether they have their own plane. I think most of the teams charter. The maintenance on a plane can be pretty heavy duty. And after all these NHL owners aren't really worth a whole lot of money, so they don't have a whole lot of things that they can contribute. So,
and then there's the fact of, something goes wrong at the last minute, and it's like, we only have one plane.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Now what are we supposed to do? The charter just seems to make sense to me, but what do I know? You gotta get a whole hockey team and all your
equipment,
all your equipment, and your entourage.
Yes,
all your trainers and your coaches. You definitely want them.
I think they actually bring press too. I'm not 100% sure. They used to, but I don't know whether they do anymore or not.
That would make sense to me. Bring let the local press tag along, because you're not going to get it, especially now. Edmonton, big hockey town.
Mm-hmm.
They're centered on it. Miami, not so much.
Yeah, not so.
You have the NCAA is huge down there. Obviously, this time of the year, the Dolphins are really not a thing. Yeah, the NBA playoffs are drawing to a close as well, but you got the Miami Heat down there. Hockey is not it's a big, big city, but I feel like hockey is not their best priority, to the point where
really?
I
They
have been. I've
yeah,
never been to Miami
yeah.
outside of hockey season, and I've been 6 times.
Hmm.
And there's very little coverage because I love watching local TV in strange cities just to the bizarre little local commercials and just to see what they have going on down there. I don't think I've seen coverage of the Panthers on the sports on the news down there longer than a couple minutes
Yeah.
here or there.
Well, I mean,
It's
playoffs. I mean, they sell out their stadium, so
Mhm.
there must be at least 20,000 Canadians living in Miami.
It's Florida in well, I mean, most of the snowbirds are, coming back this year, those that may have
Mhm.
gone down. Um, but yeah, it's Miami's a huge city, so finding 20,000 people to fill the stadium, and everybody likes a winner.
That's right.
If the team's on the roll, some of these casuals are going to go.
Yep.
I'm sure there's radio contests down there going on to win a pair of tickets to see game one or whatever else is
Hmm.
going on with that. But Miami's got a lot of stuff going on, and I
It does. It does.
clearly
Oh, you
you
haven't
want some
even
different
mentioned
coverage.
probably the
So,
biggest one of all, though, Matt, is college football.
oh yeah,
It's freaking
oh yeah.
huge. You got the University of Florida and
Well,
what is the other
Miami,
big
the
Miami?
University
Yeah,
of Miami itself is.
they're generally contenders for top teams in college football. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I mean, they've produced a few high-profile players over the
yeah,
years. I mean, back when I was in school, it was the gear to have in
yeah,
the late 1900s, shall we say. Um, they were one of those teams that it was cool gears, it was cool colors.
mhm,
They even produced this little known athlete, Dwayne, who went on to be a movie star.
yeah, yeah. He did, didn't he? Pretty
Yeah,
big movie star
yeah,
too.
pretty big movie star. May have done a few TV shows here or there, and if you
Yeah,
smell what I'm cooking.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I mean it's huge down there. Like, and you look at all these professional leagues that go around, and pick your sport. The NFL, the Major League Baseball, the NHL, Major League Soccer, NBA. There's
yeah,
50 states. Not every state has a professional team there or multiples.
yeah.
In some cases, you get to your New Yorks and your Los Angeleses, they have multiple teams in the same league in some cases. I
Mhm.
mean, Anaheim is Anaheim and LA is LA, but they're basically on top of each other.
Yeah, yeah,
And so LA, you could really count that as having two hockey teams in there. You got the
yeah,
Giants and the Jets out in New York. You have the
yeah,
Mets and the Yankees out in New York. You have the
yeah,
Islanders and the Rangers out in New York.
yeah,
So, and then Miami has all their stuff, and it's every state does have a school though.
yeah.
And
They
so,
do.
and they pack it in. And
They do.
some states have these things, and they're still selling out college football. Look at Texas, for
Hmm.
example.
Yes,
If you've ever flown into or over Texas, you can see these giant stadiums for
and
high school football.
their high
High
school
school
football.
football.
Yeah, yeah.
Not not even the college level
No.
or,
Get 30 or
Jerry's World.
40,000 fans to a high school football game
Uh-huh.
on Friday night because it all happens on Friday night.
Yeah,
So
it's Friday Night Lights. I
yeah,
mean, there's films and TV shows based on that, and it's and good for them. They found something, but yeah, the competition down there to get anything, and back to our point, I feel like if you're a Canadian hockey team, or if you're a team like a Detroit or a Colorado that is a big hockey town, you want to bring your press with you because the locals may not give too much of a shit even though it is the finals.
yeah,
So and it's not just even that. I think you
yeah,
want that little bit of a biased media um, anytime you
Yeah,
go,
that's
really.
that's yeah. No, you got to have that. And I mean, Florida, like I said, for all the sports that they have, I mean, they've produced one of the top hockey teams in the world over the last 5 years. What have they been? This is their fourth Stanley Cup appearance in a row, I think.
In a
Not a
row?
In a row, yeah. I think
Hmm.
you might
Well,
be
you
able
know
to
what?
check
You
that
keep
out.
thinking. I'm gonna
You
ask the
check that
all-knowing
out.
genie.
I'm
You
pretty
keep
sure
going with your
it's
point.
three, but I think it might be four. So I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. Probably a greater percentage as far as this goes. How you doing? Did you find out?
I'm still working on it. So talk to me more about. I mean,
Yeah.
you traveled a little bit, especially when you did those European tours.
Yes.
Now, did you have media with you when you did that? I mean, it wasn't the NHL level you were at, but you
Well,
were
I did
not
the
too
media
far below it.
reports the first time that we were to Czechoslovakia. Yeah, and I would hook up to our local media in Duncan. In Duncan, we're broadcasting from Prague, Czechoslovakia, or Praha, Czechoslovakia, to Duncan, BC. And
Mm-hmm.
the next time I did take media staff with us. Actually, the
Mm-hmm.
one of the I think he was an editor and sort of chief sports reporter in Nanaimo, and yeah, I didn't. At least I didn't have to call back what happened in the games with any kind of bias. So, yeah, yeah, he got a great break and a big story, and he made a lot of money on it when we were there too. So
Yeah.
another
Yep.
day we'll talk about that. But yeah, yeah, that team made USA Today for 3 days in a row. Hey, and we won the tournament too. But that's not the story.
I mean that no, it's a good story, but
Um,
you always want to see that sort of end up there, but that was definitely not the story, and we'll have to get into that because there's a lot to unpack with that particular story.
hmm
Um, and we will definitely get into it one point. I had a couple ideas on that, but there is a key character in that story I'd like to keep trying to track down.
Yeah,
But yeah,
he's
we'll figure that out.
yeah,
We'll figure it
yeah.
out. We'll see what we can do about that. But if not, we can just talk about our various perspectives on it. So, anyways, back to your point. No, this is the Florida Panthers' third
Third in a
straight
row.
trip to the finals. They lost to the Golden Knights in 23. They defeated the Oilers last year. But before in 22, it was Tampa Bay
Yeah.
as the runner-up, losing to Colorado.
hmm
However, Tampa Bay won 2 years in a row in 20 and 21. So I
Ah,
mean,
there you
Florida
go.
is a bit of a
It's a
powerhouse as
hockey
far as
hotbed.
hockey. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean we've had the let's see here where we are then. Yeah, and then again in 2015 it was the Lightning losing to the Blackhawks. So I mean, yeah, it makes sense to me. There was one point in the late 90s
Well, if
with
you were going to be traded and looking for a trader, you were a free agent. You had your choice between Minnesota or Miami. Well, I think I might take Miami, especially if I'm getting closer to the end of my career. So, yeah, it's Florida's done very well in terms of producing, quality winning hockey. And if you're one of those kinds of teams, you can make it to those finals and semifinals.
Mhm.
You're a pretty quality team. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is you're down there and it's nice and hot and yeah, absolutely. I mean, Miami, Tampa Bay has a
Mhm.
lot to offer as far as off ice
Lifestyle.
activities,
Yeah.
lifestyle.
Yeah.
But there was one point in the late 90s, there was a couple of other professional leagues going on out there. And I remember being at the bar doing the video trivia thing. And the question came up: what state or province had the most professional hockey teams? And at the time I answered this question, and I don't remember the other answers, but we had discounted one particular state. And we're like, no, it was in fact Texas.
Yes, Texas. They have two professional leagues in Texas.
Yes. So, and it was
I had a
something like,
chance to get in on the bottom with that. There was a fella that I knew that coached against me in the BC Junior Hockey League,
mm-hmm,
Kozebak. He was the one that had the idea. We've sort of run our string. Junior hockey coaches run their string. I went into player development, and he went on to buy franchises or build franchises and sell them in Texas. And he said, "Why don't you come along with me?" Not that we liked each other very much when we were playing against each other, but
well, I
after we
mean,
got to know each other, he's a pretty tenacious guy. He had a lot of really good ideas, but he built both of those leagues, because once he finished selling in one, he started selling in another. And I don't know where Rick is now. I don't know what else he did down there, but I do know that after a lot of hard work, he was having some pretty good success in terms of
mm-hmm,
building franchises and selling franchises in Texas. I had a number of kids from Canada go down and play in those leagues. They weren't NHL caliber players or American Hockey League caliber players, but they're college players who love to play hockey.
mm-hmm,
So your only choice way back was going to Europe. And then all of a sudden you had this Texas league. They'd had other professional leagues in North America, but they all seemed to get started and collapse. The American Hockey League and the East Coast Hockey League were the two that survived and became the developers for the NHL. But we had the International Hockey League, the West Coast Hockey League, and the International and West Coast Hockey Leagues were made up both mostly of, I shouldn't say small end, but players who played a year or two in the NHL and wanted to continue playing their hockey and left and went to these leagues. They didn't get paid a whole lot, so they had to have a lot of determination just to stay and play.
mm-hmm.
Guys who wanted better money went to Europe, but you had to basically make first division, and then the European countries got a little bit uh, funny about all these Canadians coming in as imports and displacing, their homegrown hockey players. So they started limiting the numbers of players that they would allow in, or limiting them in terms of what their profile had to be. There's lots of guys that they had to play a minimum of 2 years in the American Hockey League or 5 years in the East Coast Hockey League. So they started to make rules and regulations so a guy couldn't not go to an American Hockey League team and make it and just jump over to Europe and have a
Mm-hmm.
job. So it's grown. It's grown. Uh, you hear less and less about the big European professional leagues, though. Really, I mean, Germany and Sweden used to be the predominant, and then you had Italy coming in, and then you had Austria, and it they didn't main or they weren't able to maintain the same high level of hockey that they had, because the NHL was expanding and the American Hockey League were expanding. So there were more and more opportunities for people to stay in, and the East Coast League were all doing the same thing. I think Vancouver Canucks farm team is in the American Hockey League championships. I think they're in their third round. I haven't followed it that much, but I know quite a
Yeah,
few.
the Abbotsford Canucks are still playing. They
Yes.
were playing last weekend.
Yeah, they
So,
were. They had won two series. That's how big that league is now. You know,
yeah.
I have no idea how many teams they had in it, but the American Hockey League used to be about 8 teams. That was it. I think they're way, way above that now, and so is the East Coast. So there's more opportunity to stay in North America and some of the young Europeans are coming to those leagues to try and get their crack at the NHL instead of staying and
Mm-hmm.
playing at home. But yeah, there's still a lot of professionals who finish their North American career at a NHL level and go to Europe for a few years, but not as many as there used to be. They're not paying.
And you know who Abbotsford is currently playing in their
Hmm.
series?
No,
Texas.
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Hallelujah. You
th-
you knew it, didn't you? Yeah.
well, no,
Yeah.
I googled it. That's the key is to get you talking for a minute so that I can Google things.
Oh,
That's
okay.
for those of you wondering why I'm looking off to the left every once in a while or to the right. I have multiple screens set up, and
Mhm.
I'm trying to dig for some information, some little tidbit
Yeah.
here though. Um, yeah, so it
How's
looks like
Abbotsford
it
doing in
is.
this one? Does it say?
I am just looking for that information, and it looks like the Abbotsford is up 2-1 so far
Oh,
in that
awesome.
particular
I'd
series.
love to see them go to the next series too.
Yeah,
I
I
would
mean,
really.
and that to me makes sense to have your farm team
Mhm.
close.
Yeah.
Um, I mean,
Yeah.
you've seen not every team does it. Sometimes that farm team is out of province or out of state, or sometimes it's even out of country. And when you need to call this guy up,
Mhm.
that's a bit of a hustle to get somebody. You
Yeah,
know.
the last place was Utica, New York. That's where I played in the East Coast Hockey League for a while,
Mhm.
and that's a long trip because you have
Well, I
to
mean,
like basically travel almost all the way into New York to catch a plane to get to Vancouver, or maybe
and then you're
Syracuse
looking at a
or
five and a
Buffalo.
half, six
Buffalo,
hour
maybe.
flight.
Oh, at least getting off the plane and then expected to play
Yeah,
because
and
they don't call them up and keep them there unless they need somebody. So
yeah.
they're going to be thrown at, and that's what I find it's a little bit difficult for players coming up from that kind of a trip to be thrown onto the ice after been on a plane for or traveling for I mean if you're on the plane for 5.5 hours that means you've been traveling for 8 at
Minimum.
least and
And
then
you've been up
you
for, if
get
you're
there
coming
just
from
in
the East
time.
Coast,
You
it's,
land
yeah,
at
they're just,
5:30, 6 o'clock, and you're expected to be to the arena dressed and ready to go.
and your body
Kudos to
thinks
them.
it's 8:30, 9 o'clock,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Like,
yeah. So professional athletes, especially professional athletes playing on the farm teams, trying to make it to a ticket with a big team. They know those games are really, really important for them, and they're a little bit of a disadvantage to start with. But Vancouver, that was the smartest thing they did.
mhm.
Like I said, for years and years and years, and I had a lot of friends with the Canucks back in the '80s and '90s, even in management. A lot of Canuck people that I knew, and I said, "Why are you guys like?" Your farm team's all back east. Well, that's where the competition is. So the American Hockey League spreading out and the East Coast Hockey League spreading out has made it possible for them to, their thing is they're there to play and play a lot against as good a competition as they can get. And if they've got to be doing travel from Vancouver to Hershey and then back home and then Vancouver to Greensboro, North Carolina and
Mhm.
back home, and that pretty well wears out your farm team. So
Mhm.
the expansion of, like I said, of both the East Coast League and the American Hockey League, I think, I don't know this, but I think is what made it possible for Vancouver to be able to move their farm team. And the fact that Abbotsford built a great arena
Oh, yes,
for an American
absolutely.
Hockey League team. Like, kudos to Abbotsford.
Yeah, I mean,
That's a great arena to play in.
I mean, I would call it a semi-pro level arena. It's
That's
not
what it's
quite as
supposed to be.
big as your Madison Square Gardens or your Staples Centers.
No,
Um,
no.
I mean, in a former life doing security technology, I hung a lot of cameras and did a lot of cable
Mm.
pulling in that arena. But
Ah, so you
it
know
is a
very well. Yeah,
fantastic
yeah,
facility, absolutely.
yeah.
And it's it's doing really good business, doing not just because I mean
Shows.
it was they had a team there. The Abbotsford Heat, I think, was the first team there years ago,
Mhm.
Um, and then that's I'm not sure what happened to them, but they went away.
Mhm.
Um, and that was just it. They went away, and then the Abbotsford Canucks came in a few years
Yeah,
later.
well,
But I
the
mean,
Abbotsford Heat was the farm team for the Calgary team,
yes,
and I wouldn't say self-destructed. They were just moved, I guess. I don't know where
yeah,
Calgary moved them to, but it left
yeah. I don't,
open
I
the
don't know. I just know they
opportunity
left.
that the arena had American Hockey League in it,
Hmm.
and having the Canucks in there would be a big bonus. I mean,
Hmm.
there are a few Vancouver Canuck hockey fans in Vancouver, so to and
Yeah, it
like
depends on
for
the day of the
me,
week, really.
going going to an Abbotsford game is probably a bigger priority for me
Hmm.
because I know a lot of young kids. I think I know four kids that are, well, I shouldn't call them kids. I know four young men that are on that team, and a couple
Hmm.
of them I've actually had on my teams.
Hmm.
And it's wonderful to go and watch, you know,
Yeah.
young local guys play, let
No, and it's
alone the the, the draft choices that Vancouver's made over the last few years. You get a chance to go and see them play, and
hmm
then you wonder. I mean, you look at how successful that team is, and then you got to wonder. Vancouver might be doing kind of the right thing. Other than God, I
well, I
wish
mean,
they
we got
maybe would keep Rick Tocchet, but you know, uh, they must have some talent coming through there. I know the kids that I know were very talented in junior hockey. Now they have to prove it at the pro level.
mhm. Well, I mean, we got three notable hockey teams in the greater Vancouver area. I mean,
Mm.
we obviously have the Canucks. We've just been discussing the Abbotsford Canucks, but we still have the Vancouver Giants as well, and they're playing out
Oh
of
yeah,
Langley these
oh
days.
yeah, oh yeah,
Um,
and that's a nice
so,
facility too.
and so you can go downtown. You can do the Rogers Arena, Vancouver Canucks. You can hop in the car. You go 45 minutes up the highway, and you can see the Vancouver Giants play in Langley,
Hmm.
and you can hop back in the car, and in about another 25 half hour up the highway is the Abbotsford Canucks.
Yeah,
Like we're loaded out
we
here.
are. Yeah,
We really are spoiled for choice if you want to catch a hockey game. And
yeah.
it, honestly, I think it's that level right below your big leagues
Hmm.
is got that hunger in it. So to
Hmm.
me, I think you see better games more consistently because so many guys and girls are out there trying to get noticed for that next step up. I
Yeah,
think that's one of the big things that really makes the NCAA in the States so worthwhile to watch because everybody has the hunger and they're looking at it like, especially when you're talking the NCAA, because every major school has a major team,
yeah.
but there's only so many spots that come up every year.
That's right.
So everybody is scrambling trying to get there. Now, some of them may, end up, playing hockey in Texas or basketball in Italy or wherever else. They may not get there, but the feeder system of just these young athletes trying to get noticed, you just see, to me, you just see so much better consistency really than what
Yeah,
you would sometimes get in the
yeah.
pros. Does that make
Well,
sense?
they're different levels of entertainment too.
Mhm.
Like for me going to a Vancouver Canucks game, I mean, if a hockey team makes four mistakes in the game, they probably have three goals scored against them.
Mhm.
It's become so precise. Almost it's not how many good plays you can make. A lot of high-end professional leagues are based on winning is based on how many plays did you mess up? How many
Mhm.
times did some guy forget this? And there's such a high quality of skill that given a high quality skill player an opportunity more than the normal, he's going to score. And so lots of times I say it's the mistakes that they shouldn't be counting goals. They should be counting mistakes to determine who the winner is, because ultimately that's what it comes down to. And
Well, I
then you
mean,
go to the American Hockey League, and their game is more about mistakes. They're all learning not to make them, but the game is more open. They do more things that are, out of their head. This is what the situation, this is what my response is. And then you go down to junior hockey, and again, there's more mistakes, but the quality of the skill of some of the individuals is exceptional. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've had players that have gone on to the NHL. I had one in oh gosh, let's not mention this. Yeah, no, anyway, in Nanaimo, Jim Magoo, the guy could score. The guy scored 2 or 3 goals every game of his entire Western Hockey League career, and yet he got to the NHL, and at that level, they have a Rocky Trache and players of that caliber. You don't get as many goal scoring opportunities, so you don't score the goals. So that it looks like, oh, how can a guy score, 70, 80 goals a year in junior hockey and get 3 in the NHL? And it's all about opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
If you can hang in there long enough to be the man to move the puck to, and you have that knack for scoring, you do. If you don't get the chance, opportunity to score, and lots of people say, "Oh, well, they're a miserable failure as a pro hockey player," and that's not
I
right.
hate that.
Yeah,
I hate
not.
that. There's 800 of these. There's less than 800 of those jobs in the world right now.
Yep,
I'm sorry if he's only 799 as far
yep,
as if you were to rank the players.
yep,
Um, but I mean, to give that some perspective, there's 500,000 kids in minor hockey in Canada.
yep.
And if you end up being top 800 in the world,
Yeah, somebody
call me a
asked me
miserable
once.
failure if you want, but I'd like to be the top 800 in the world in anything.
Yeah, yes, yeah, yeah,
Period.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah,
Like,
somebody once asked me, just exactly what do you got to do to be an elite hockey player? I said, well, you got to be swimming in a pool where you're swimming faster than anybody else,
mhm.
and you don't get to determine what that pool is.
Yeah.
So in some pools you're the fastest fish, and in other pools all the other fish are faster than you. Yet the
Mhm.
last pool you were in, you were the fastest fish. So it's a hard emotional adjustment, especially when you're not asked to do the things that you did specifically well. Uh, uh, Bad example, Uh, I had a pretty good junior and college career of scoring
Mhm.
goals and skating fast, and the other thing that I could do very very efficiently was be a goofball. And when I got to what I considered my next step of I wanted to really be there, I was asked to be a goofball. They didn't care whether I could skate fast or shoot pucks in the net. You know, the goofball is what the fans wanted to see. So I was the most popular goofball on the team. So it's just, you just never know what you're going to get. You wish for and you hope to get to another level, and then you get to that level and you find out it's not exactly what you thought it would be for you anyway.
Mhm.
For somebody it is. So, yeah.
I mean, and it's for those out there that are listening to this and you play video games. It's sometimes you're out there and you're just killing it. Let's say you're playing the latest NHL video game. You're out there, you're just killing it, and you're undefeated in your season, but you're bored. So what do? You go to your settings and you go from normal difficulty to hard, and that jump is mind-boggling because all of a sudden you can't get within striking distance of that puck. You lose every face-off. Anytime you get close to touching it, the other team takes it away from you, and you're losing like it's the 80s and the entire team was doing NyQuil shots in the dressing room before they hit the ice. It's that's just the way it is. It's just that
Doping in video games, but yeah.
it's it's just the way it is
Yeah.
you've gone from the big fish in the small pond to the all of a sudden you realize exactly
Mhm.
where your skill level is and that you aren't done working yet.
No.
You did decades. Let's say it's been 2 decades since you put on your first pair of skates. You worked your ass off. You have this multi-million-dollar contract now. You got a couple of years in this city. You got the jersey and the team you want, and you're cool. Yeah, I got this. And you get out on the ice and you realize that, oh shit, the last 20 years was just a warm up.
Yep. That's exactly what it is because it all changes. I think uh, there's a saying, and I'm going to get the saying wrong, but you know, you worked really, really hard, and your whole time that you're doing whatever you're doing, and it doesn't matter whether it's hockey or whether it's life, and you're getting closer and closer, and you quit, and
Mm-hmm.
5 years down the road, you realize if you'd have kept going that extra few steps, you'd have been to where you wanted to be,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what makes it hard. You don't know where that breaking point comes, and most people quit.
Yeah.
They've got
Well,
a
I mean,
job
it's
they love and they want a promotion, and they work and they work and they work and they've done a great job, and then all of a sudden, I'm not going anywhere in this job, and they quit. And a year later, all the people who were in front of him either get sick or leave the company, and they'd have been where they wanted to. So
mm-hmm.
I, you know, I have not figured out in this life where that point is. Uh, you know,
You
so I try
can't.
not. So I just try not to quit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's the old saying is 3 feet from gold. You
Yep.
never know when you're only 3 feet from gold. So
Yep.
uh, quitting, not swinging that pickaxe one more time.
Mm.
The next guy, might come down that abandoned mine shaft 100 years later after the wily old prospector have given up,
And or
goofing
what he
around,
finds,
with his buddies, swings an old pickaxe, and all of a sudden there's this shiny wall of gold right
yeah.
there.
Or
And
you dig
meanwhile, the
for gold and
prospector
dig
never
for
got to
gold.
it.
You leave your gold mine behind, and the next guy in hits the next lump of dirt and discovers diamonds.
Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah. You
that's
know
all
what?
you just got to keep going. Now you might not have a choice. I mean, let's be honest. Father Time is undefeated.
Yeah.
The injuries happen.
Hmm.
Um, and that's and sometimes it's just
But you've given it your best to the end.
yeah.
You didn't
Sometimes I
quit
mean
before the
we've
end
talked
came.
about it with other players. It's just you've been there for so many years, and it's like, well, I mean, Father Time's undefeated, and you're still doing good. But we don't have a spot for you here.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just that simple. Sometimes your big dreams end up being cool. I got this shot. I'm in the league, and you're the guy that gets so and so was traded for so and so and so and so and a bag of pucks, and you have a nice collection of team jerseys, team game worn jerseys. It's just it wasn't the whole thing you wanted it to be. You weren't the Trevor Linden that stayed, 16 years on the same team. You weren't the guy that only had a couple of jerseys to it in that career. But I mean, you got there.
Yeah.
You got there. For that time you were there, you you were one of the top 800 players in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't realize that though until years later, because usually depression sets in. And I don't know. I've had so many friends that played. I even have friends in football
Mm-hmm.
played, because the kind of neat thing about working a high end sport, and one, you get to meet high end athletes in others. And
Mm-hmm.
I've met quite a few over the years. I've met quite a few BC Lion players. I've even had
Mm-hmm.
taught their kids skating, or had them on hockey teams, or and yeah, it's the same everywhere. And when do I end it? You know, do I wait till I'm pushed out? Do I get out
Mm-hmm.
on the top? Everybody says you should get out on the top, but why would you get out on the top if you could have had 5 or 6 more years of enjoying just being a part of?
Yeah.
And I think that's what most professionals at the ends of their careers, when they get home, they say, well, now is a good time to go, and I can do this and I can do that. But
Mm-hmm.
deep down inside, and I don't know too many that don't, they think, oh God, I would have loved to have played just one more.
Yeah.
That one more would
One
have been
more.
one more, one more, one more. So it's getting over that. Was I really done? And that I think really weighs heavy on their minds. I mean, I
Yeah.
know
I mean,
players I would have loved to have seen play a couple of one more years, but a lot of them were injured and had severe injuries. So,
and that's something you can't control. Hey, Jeff, nice seeing you,
hey,
buddy.
Jeff, I like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
picture. Put it back up.
Yeah, he's excited for the Jeff. That's Jeff hanging out on the last Jericho cruise with the Outrunners, a wonderful tag team out of the AEW locker room.
Yay.
Oh, I love that boat so much.
Yeah, you've been on it a few times.
Six,
Six
planning for
times, yeah.
6 times.
I
That's
keep
so.
saying I'd like to, but oh my
You
God,
know
I see
what?
the amount of
There
party
isn't.
you guys do. I'd never make it back.
You know what? There's an ex NHL player that's on the boat every year, so we just hunt him down. You two old timers can go and talk hockey.
Oh yeah,
And he
Ted,
he is more than happy
Ted.
to as
How
well.
many times has Ted come on that cruise?
I think he missed last year, but he's been on 5.
We're getting
Jeff
older.
may know better. I didn't see Ted last year at all, so I don't know if he actually made
Yeah.
it. Sometimes it's a big boat. You just don't see people.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's for those of you doing the math. I mentioned earlier I've been to Miami 6 times. Well, that's why.
Yeah.
But it is
Go cruising
fantastic.
around with a bunch of professional athletes. That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, and rock bands and comedians and all sorts of stuff. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. Look at Doug on the second cruise. Doug and Fun Time Tony. What could possibly go wrong? And that joke is specifically aimed at about a half dozen people, but Jeff might be laughing his ass off right now. Yeah, no, it'd be
Jeff, I live in the wilderness in northern BC, and you're certainly welcome to come and visit me. I'm pretty sure I could find something for you to do, like cutting wood, stacking wood.
Yeah, so
no, not that bad.
He is, and you say northern BC, you're still in the bottom 15% of the province.
Yeah, but as far as population goes, we're
no, it's most when you go too much further north, it's just bears and moose and the occasional Alaskan that got turned around. So Jeff is not correcting me on that. He thinks Ted's been on 5, and I've seen him on the first 5, so I didn't see him on 6.
Okay.
But he was a wonderful man. I mentioned hockey, and he was more than happy to talk to me, even after he realized that I was not his son. But that's a whole other story. Speaking of other stories, something we discovered right before we hit the record button here today. Dominic Hasek has had an interesting week. He has accused
in Russia.
Yeah, he has accused a high-ranking Russian official of what's the exact word? Of threatening his life. So apparently, former Prime Minister Dmitry, I'm gonna screw this up, Medvedev.
Yes, that's pretty close.
Medvedev, yeah. Somewhere close. My other buddy Alex is rolling his eyes at me. So there was Medvedev had a quote, 895, the result of a great Russian player, referring to Alex Ovechkin. Yes. P.S. We are waiting for the suicide of the crazy Czech Hasek.
Ooh.
Wow.
Oh,
And Hasek, when asked by Zednik Jana of isports.cz, which I'm assuming is a Czech sports website,
it would be.
he said,
Yes.
"Yes, I read that. This person is clearly publicly threatening me with murder."
Oh,
Ooh,
wow. What an
that's
interpretation.
that's a heavy, heavy thing to put out there. Yeah, that I wow. I know that
Yeah. I wonder
not
where
all
that
of the
comes from.
players that have
Yeah.
come out of Russia or the former Soviet
I would
Union
expect
back in the
Pavel
day.
Bure threatening him because he stopped Pavel Bure a few times, but I don't. I have no idea why an ex prime minister of Russia would threaten a Czechoslovakian, incredibly talented, athletic, goal hockey puck stopping crazy person.
Well, he is Medvedev is currently the deputy chairman to the Russian Security Council.
Huh?
So he's still a high-ranking official.
Is he ever?
Um, Now I want to hope that this is just the tone was lost in translation. You know,
Yeah.
it's hard to pick up sarcasm in a text.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of hoping there was a chuckle and a wink and a nod there somewhere. But I mean, as I was beginning to say there, it's
Hmm.
when you look at some of the stories of the players that did come out of Russia and the former Soviet Union, it wasn't a, oh yeah, no, hey, go ahead, do your thing. As there have been stories of the government not being so happy about it and defections happening. There have been stories that perhaps a criminal element was not so happy with them gone, or
Hmm.
maybe saw an opportunity to get a chunk of their contract by tracking down a family member or two. Um, those stories
You
have
hear rumors of that kind of stuff that happens, but I haven't heard that in quite a few years. But in the early years of Russian defection, there was quite a consideration for a player leaving, you know, uh,
Mhm.
from behind the Iron Curtain. Period. Russia wasn't the only one. Czechoslovakian players,
Yes.
very, very. I mean, I was there when it was really important, and we were told
Mhm.
specifically by the government security people that we are not to talk to the players because the players traveled with
Mhm.
us on buses to some of the exhibition games that we played.
Oh.
And we were told, do not talk to the players about how they might defect from Czechoslovakia
Mhm.
to, and they always mentioned the NHL. They didn't specifically mention Canada or the United States. They were defecting to the NHL, and there were some, I mean, we played the best teams that Czechoslovakia had to play. And one of the teams that we played actually won the World Junior Championship. We had a 7-5 game with them. That's not bad for a bunch of Canadian
Mhm.
guys going there. And that was our
I mean,
tournament.
and you guys and your
That,
team was it just to make sure everybody is clear on this. You're not taking a team of 25-year-old guys over there. You're taking a team of guys that are in their
17.
late
Well,
teens.
Danny
In term,
Hodgson was 15. And
there you go.
I mean, but then again, we got to play against, in exhibition games, we got to play against a lot of there were national teams, but different age national teams. I mean, we played against, yeah, the best one was we played against their World Junior representative. They were a little surprised kind of hockey that we played because they were expecting more of a North American kind of game. And I kind of like to coach skill and the development
Mhm.
skill. And I mean, and really, other than the opportunity to win an invitational tournament, it was it 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 really was something that you'd experience once or twice in your life, and it really wouldn't make a whole lot of difference to the rest of the world. At least I thought that until his second trip. But
Hmm.
like we played against guys like Namana Kasik was the goaltender for the Czech team, and we kind of surprised them because we came out, we didn't bump and crash, and they were kind of looking for bump and crash, and all of a sudden going into the third period, they're down 5-3. This is the Czech team that won the World Junior Championship by beating the Canadian national junior team in the final. So those kids should have had a lot of very fond memories of that trip and opportunity, but that turned around on us.
Yeah, one of those trips. I mean, we're dancing around this issue, and we're gonna keep dancing around it for a little while because it was a thing, and I don't want to get too far out of control. There's at least one other guest I know I can get that has a very interesting perspective on it. I have my own memories of
Mm-hmm.
that time, but there is a key person that involves a little more tracking down to get a hold
Yeah,
of. But I think
yeah.
your perspective would be cool, but
I used
also,
I used to follow how he was doing because I was
mhm,
worried about him for years because he went through, well, he created the opportunity, but he
yeah,
went through something that I really wouldn't want to see anybody else go through.
no, no, and
And
that
I followed him for a few years, and after junior hockey, he found a job, and uh, pretty good job, but I think he's struggled a little because he left. He keeps leaving good opportunities and moving to something else. And I had
mm,
always hoped that that wouldn't be the case. You know, if you're a part of it, you always feel a certain amount of responsibility, and
mhm.
I always have felt that, and so I have always hoped for the best. It
Yeah,
cost
I
me a
want
lot
to.
of money doing that, though.
Yeah, well, you know what? Let's we're doing
Yeah,
a
we're
lot of
saying too much.
dancing around this, and I want to get off it. Suffice to say, yes,
Done.
because
We're
I
off.
think at the very least, I know I can get the one person uh, that has a very interesting counter to your side.
Hmm.
You know, but I'll have to pray on it a little bit and see if her boss will let her have a couple hours off in the afternoon.
Hmm.
Um, but she had a very interesting perspective on it. I was much younger, but it's one of those things where, yeah, something ain't right here. Anywho, let's move on. Let's take a look, see what else is going on in the hockey news. It looks like the
Yay.
Canucks are grabbing a Bruin, as
Yeah.
it has been announced that Derek Forbort has signed a 1-year, $2 million contract with the Vancouver Canucks, to the point where it wasn't on the radio at all today before I left work. So this is a fairly recent story, and normally they are all over talking about this in between songs on the radio station we have on at work. So the Canucks are making some moves to come up the ranks already, get some skill on the defensive line there. Um, Now for our locals, what have you seen this year? Like, is the defense a place to really start filling the holes in the patchwork here?
Um, Actually, I think Vancouver's. Well, I mean, you've got Quinn Hughes, who's you know maybe the most.
Do
Um,
we?
yeah, well, certainly elite in the NHL, but I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
type of game that he plays is the kind of game Bobby Orr played. You know,
Mm-hmm.
comparison can I make? I'm
That's not the first
if
time
he,
I've
if
heard
he
that.
if he if he feels bad about being compared to Bobby Orr, because I know he really respects the things that Bobby Orr did, but he's his mind is open. He's very creative. Creative is the word that I really wanted to use, and yet he's disciplined enough and he works hard enough to make a huge, hardcore player as far as Vancouver's success on defense goes. You know what? I'd be looking for more scoring forwards. But a lot of the scoring forwards Vancouver's had have been hard pressed on injury, certainly last year and at the end of the year before that. And that was a very successful year, going as far as they did. Um, so I don't know. I I always hope for Vancouver because we're sitting in Vancouver, but um, the direction that they're heading, uh, they have a lot more pieces to fill if that's what their idea of what the team is going to be. I mean, they're not a Florida with really big size, except for
Hmm.
Sam, who's a Vancouver boy too.
Hmm.
You know, Florida's a pretty big hockey team. Top to bottom, there aren't too many little people there, with great goaltending. And Vancouver, I think some of Vancouver's, well, certainly most of Vancouver's forwards are, should I say, average
Hmm.
size for an NHL player, and
Hmm.
yet they're some of their best players. Um, and then I look at the skill players that they've got down on the farm; they're the same kind of player, and it's not missing grit; it's just the inability to provide that nasty grit. I mean,
Hmm.
you know, all of the better teams have one or two very physical. Yet you have to be a good hockey player too nowadays, but very physical, players. I mean, like Evander Kane coming back, he's hit just about every player 3 times per
Yeah.
game, which is that's and he's a skilled hockey player. But you got guys like Sherwood on Vancouver who I love. He
Hmm.
scores enough and he's physical enough to keep the other team. He creates a lot of turnovers, but he's not a huge guy. He's not
Well,
little, but
I
he's
mean,
not a
they're
huge guy. And most of the NHL teams have forwards now that are 6'4", 6'5".
yeah.
Some on every team, and I think if that's the way how hockey is developing, hockey goes in roles where it's all about skill and then all about physicalness and then all
So
about
in
skill and all
cycles is what
yeah,
you're.
yeah. Vancouver has to hook the right cycle. I thought they had it at the end of the Sedin's career
Yes.
because they were a very, very skilled, fast puck moving team and scored goals and were reasonably defensive. And they were tough on the defensive end. I think Kevin BX is maybe one of my favorite. I shouldn't say that. I know Dave Babich really well. Kevin BX is one of my favorite players ever to play in Vancouver because of, you know, just his attitude and his grit. So, yeah.
I mean, Jeff's leaning into it. You got to have a physical player too on
Yep.
your team when it comes to the playoff. In his opinion,
Yeah.
Jeff, you're not wrong.
No, you're
I
really
I
right,
think
Jeff.
that I think the key to the cycle is you got to be the one of the teams to jump on early to that cycle change.
Yeah.
If the league is leaning towards skill, being
Mhm.
one of those teams that can, I don't want to say abandon skill because that
Yeah.
ain't going to work either.
Yeah.
If you're just a goon squad, you're going to get lit up.
Well, you see the
But
trends.
if you can tilt that a little more towards the physical, then I mean, look at the success the Bruins had a few years back. I mean, even today, to be honest with you, or the Phillies of the '70s or the Flyers
Now
of the
that now
'70s.
that's what we're talking about, the cycles. They
Hmm.
were, for 5 or 6 years, the NHL got more and more physical, and Philadelphia came screaming out at the top of the league for 3 or 4 years with an
Hmm.
unbelievable physical attack with uh, with really feisty smaller leaders like Bobby
Hmm.
Clark. Bobby Clark's not big, but everybody knew he was an old style hockey player. Mess with me, and I'll stick
Well,
my
yeah,
stick up your nose. And
if you're
there was
lucky.
a lot of fear generated. And then along came to compensate that to start it down. a little bit, along came the New York Islanders, who were very skilled and also very physical. And then you
Mhm.
get a Colorado, and you get a Detroit that they have some incredibly skilled players, and the cycle is it. Well, it's always been you've had to have good goaltending.
Mhm.
But the Stanley Cup is going to come out to who plays best in goal.
I mean,
That's
and
where it is.
it's not to say that the goalies are immune. I
No,
mean, on either side of the physicality, because whoo, good lord, go fire up them Don Cherry tapes and watch how Hextall was handling business back in his day. But the goalies weren't afraid to. It's like, well, everybody else is fighting, so they just start skating out to the
goalies
center
weren't
ice and they
afraid.
have a scrap. But
Yeah, they
goalies
had it.
aren't immune to the physicality, but they're less likely to get it, and they do have a few more pounds of protection on them. So
Yeah.
they got a little more, and they're not
But
going
then
to.
again, that cuts down on their mobility if they're going to try
Mhm.
and go out being physical. That's why goaltenders want to be on goaltenders. They don't want to be on forwards or
Oh
big
God, no!
defensemen.
You
Yeah,
can't.
it's
No. Patrick
not
Wall is
unless I'm
not going to
carrying
cross.
my
Yeah.
blocker. That's their great weapon. Is their
Hextall and
carrying that
Probert weren't
blocker.
dropping the gloves. It was the two goalies would skate out, and that was just the
Yeah,
way it went. But
but
it,
they're
the
tough.
rest of the team can be beat to shit. But the goalie is usually going to be immune to that particular aspect of dealing with a more physical team. You don't often see that. There are rules to protect. You can't just run the goalie.
No.
Um, so
Well, you
it is
can,
what it is.
but
Well,
usually you pay for it if you
oh
do.
yes, it one way or the other. Whether you're sitting and
The
thinking about
rules are
what
the
you've
other
done in
team.
a
Yeah,
quiet little space, or whether you now have to worry about who's cracking his neck on the bench and about to hit the ice.
yeah,
But the goaltending, the goalie is generally speaking at a much shallower end of that particular physical play pool, and that's really what's going to. You got to keep the puck out of the net as much as you have to get the puck in the net.
yeah,
It's just the way it is. I mean, you can
yeah.
you can
I
score 9 times, but if they scored 10 and both your goalies are just sitting down there because they can't move, it is what it is. Yeah. Yeah. Jeff is all over this. We are a little over an hour, so we're going to come back to this. I have been sort of scrolling through the news. We're starting to see some management and coaching changes pop up throughout the league as well. It looks like Boston's looking for a new coach. Um,
That was coming.
yeah. Well, I
Boston
mean,
doesn't like to lose, and you consider 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I can't
yeah, yeah,
remember now. They had the best record in the NHL by many games, and then
yeah.
they lost. And then they came back the next year and had a great year and should have done well in playoffs and bombed out. And then they
Hmm.
bombed out again. And
Yeah,
yeah,
and
changes are going to be made in Boston. I
yeah,
know Cam
yeah.
Neely, and he's not, and
Boston's
the
one of those
rest of the Boston
teams.
staff.
It's
Yeah.
what it's not even the Bruins. Let's be
Yeah.
honest with you. Boston as a city, as a demographic, they don't handle losing well.
No.
Um, whether it's the Sox or the Patriots or the Celtics, they're not one of those cities that deals well
They
with
have to have a
loss.
winner. God help you.
Yeah.
You can get by if you have a big winner in the city. You might sneak by a year, but you aren't going to sneak by 2 or 3 years of failure without
No,
without the
that's
fans demanding change. So,
yeah.
but you
And
could
at this
see that
point,
you could see when how many trades Boston made that they were making space.
mhm.
And I thought they would be looking really to the free agent market this summer and the draft this summer. And I don't know what Boston's farm team development is like right now, but yeah, they're not going to stand still.
No,
Not going
they're
to
not
stand.
a they every team has a couple of years where they're just it ain't there, it ain't clicking for whatever reason. Um, Boston as a city doesn't handle it well, which puts pressure on the owners because it's not a town known for quietly waiting. either.
Mhm.
But there's lots of other teams in the league that are going to be making moves. The
Yeah.
Canucks, Boston, and Jeff here is excited to see how the St. Louis Blues off season goes. Yeah, and Jeff's right. They did show a lot of heart and grit towards the end of the season.
Jeff, they were one of my picks to surprise everybody. If they'd have gotten by Winnipeg, I think, you know,
Mhm. Yeah,
I
I
think
thought
I
they.
said that before the playoffs started. The Blues were one of my certainly to watch out for teams because they could have upset a whole lot of people, and they add a little bit more.
Mhm.
They could have a great year next year.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I was liking what I was seeing with that. I was asked to help with our little buddy Spencer, 7 years old. He do a
Mm.
hockey pool for in and amongst his extended family.
Aha.
Um, yeah, I was asked to help him out. So I mean, he has his own method of picking, which is
Oh,
cool. But I overrid him on a couple of things, and unfortunately, I pushed St. Louis through for him. Um, yeah, that didn't turn out well. But
mm.
he's not dead last. But
Yeah.
yeah, the St. Louis surprises. So I thought they had good momentum going into it. I thought exactly what Jeff was saying. They were showing what they needed to show at that point of the year, and
They
then
were.
sometimes you're the road runner, sometimes you're the coyote. It was painted on the wall. It was just paint. There was no tunnel there.
Yeah.
Um, but you know what? That's not to say there's not next year. Nobody
Yeah.
plays our physical style out in St. Louis. You know what, Jeff? And you know what? I don't know if they blew it so much as they just got beat. I mean,
Uh,
I think I'm not sure how much of that was
they were one
blowing
goal
it.
scorer away in my mind. They
Yeah.
had opportunities to score goals and win some of those games where somebody else on the other end of the handle of the stick might have gotten. I mean, all they
There's
needed was a goal or two, and they were through. So,
there's no shame in that. I mean, you can't. I mean, sure, it's disappointing for the players. It's disappointing for the fans and the
yeah,
owners and everybody.
yeah,
It's like, but at the same time, somebody's got to lose. I mean, you okay? It's just the way it is. You can be as good as possible, but if the other team is just that better, it's not that. It might not even be a mistake. You could have been dead on target. It's just so was the other guy,
yeah.
right? I mean,
Well, you play your game, and they play their game, and with a few breaks here or there, it makes the difference. It's the end of the difference. So, anyway,
all right.
I
Well,
like
let's wrap this up. We're a little over an hour here. We'll get back to this. All the off-season moving and shaking going on is just beginning. Let's not
yeah.
kid ourselves.
Let's see
There's
what's
going to be
happening,
more. There's going to be more coaches and GMs and
and
all
we got
sorts of
the
people
draft
out there
coming too.
pitching jerseys. And it is what it is. I mean, let's not forget though. You can be as good as you want, and sometimes the other team is just better. Ask the Buffalo Bills.
Hmm.
4 years in a row, runner up to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
That era still gets heat from anybody that's not in Buffalo because they were second place in the league 4 years in a row. That's not a bad thing. All
It is
right.
if you want to be first place.
Again, there's 30 other teams behind you that would love to be second.
That's true.
All right. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Some of you eagle-eyed people may have noticed there's a few aesthetic changes going on to the At the End Studios logos and whatnot, and I'm working on a few other things. Thank you for joining us. Come back and talk with us next week. Bring your questions for Dougie here,
Oh,
and we'll
please.
get into it. Yes, please. And remember, do the like, subscribe thing, and share, and tell your hockey folks, tell your sports folks, period, because while we do discuss hockey specifically a lot of the time, most of these lessons can be for life in any other sport. Doug?
Yep. Be great because you can.